All right, welcome today. My name is Kareen Mickler-Kay. If we have not met yet, I am so honored that you are here for this class that I have been indirectly working on for about a year now. And I'm going to be sharing a little bit with you about kind of the journey that I've been on with my own evolution of my womanhood and this concept of fantasy to fruition, which is something that it kind of dropped in a few weeks ago, and I decided that it was really time to start sharing this. So if you've been following my work at all, I have been working with human design and in the coaching space since the very end of 2020. My journey with human design began in late 2019. And in August of 2020, so 2 years ago, I entered a human design certification course, and that was really what kicked things off. So if you don't know your human design, you can pull your chart for free at mybodygraph.com. There are other human design websites as well, so that's the one that I use. You just need your birth day, time, and place. And we're not going to be going too heavily into human design today, actually, because today is going to be more about this journey of self and this journey of womanhood, that when you start to really connect into knowing that you are meant for more, or that there's more than what you're currently experiencing, or even allowing yourself to dream of, kind of what sort of starts to unearth and what starts to shift in this process. So about a year ago, I really gained some momentum in my business as a coach, and I had my biggest month in business. I signed multiple private clients, and things really felt like it was really an exciting time. This was in July of 2021. And it was about a month or two later that I kind of froze, and I really got into this place of self-doubt, and I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. It was like something really good happened, and then I was like, I don't even understand this. I don't know how to be with this. I don't know if I can handle this, and I don't know how to do it again. And I really got into a spiral of self-doubt and really overthinking everything. I also am in a phase of motherhood that has been extremely challenging, far more challenging than I ever could have imagined. And so that, in combination with sort of my own self-doubt, really manifested itself into just a place of feeling really, really stuck. And out of this place of stuckness, I really started to have to go in. I had to go in to really start to connect with and unearth the parts of myself that were being called upon to really bring my fantasy, my desire of the business and this leadership and the work that I want to be doing with women into fruition. And one of the biggest things that I really discovered was my unconscious trauma around the effect of patriarchy. So I consider myself pretty like normal. And that's been a little bit of my story of like, I'm pretty normal. I'm not like, super special or unique. I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle. And this has been my story about myself. Like, I don't have a ton of trauma. I don't have like a hero's journey story. I've kind of coasted through. Life has not been terribly easy. It hasn't been terribly hard. And I'm kind of vanilla. I'm just sort of regular. And so many people that I was seeing who were rising up, it was like they had to hit rock bottom before they could really begin to rise. And that just wasn't my experience. I was not at rock bottom, but in this process of deepening into my own trauma around conditioning of the patriarchy, I really started to see places where I had, you know, experienced suppression of myself, and really start to really look at that. So this experience of patriarchy and really seeing it in my day-to-day life really kind of opened my eyes to how many of us as women are walking around detached from our deeper selves, detached from what we really want to be doing or how we really want to be showing up. And not to say that we're miserable. This is the other thing. You don't need to be miserable or at rock bottom to decide that you want to shift, that you want to change, that you want to grow, that you want more. And this is another thing. And I think this is a place where it's very easy to stay stuck when you're like, well, I don't really have it that bad. And I should be grateful for what I have because a lot of people have less than me. And this is very true. And it's extremely important to move with gratitude. But it's also really important to connect down to that deeper soul level of who you are and really start to ask yourself, where am I? What more could I be doing to come into the world as the fullness of me? And what are the gifts that I have that I don't recognize or that I'm not sharing or that I'm suppressing even because maybe there are things about me that I think are like weird or that, you know, wouldn't be that, you know, I wouldn't be accepted for. And so in this looking at how patriarchy, how the suppression of the feminine, of the goddess, of feminine energy over, we're talking like the majority of human history. This isn't just, you know, a few generations ago. This isn't just 100 years ago. This is thousands of years of men, and we'll say men, but it's also women, because an important thing to really understand here is that masculine and feminine energies don't mean men and women. So men are not by any means the enemy, but it's the toxic masculine energy of dominance and suppression that has created the patriarchy that we know today, that has influenced our mothers, our grandmothers, our great-great-grandmothers, and beyond, all the way back. And so I read this book called Patriarchy Stress Disorder. And if you resonate at all with this experience of feeling like you don't feel seen or that you don't feel held in our current society, this is an incredible book. It's by Dr. Vivian. I can put the, if you're interested in the book, just let me know. I'm drawing a blank right now, but I read this book and I was like, my eyes were so open to my inherent trauma around needing to be a certain way, to, you know, a lot of stories that I had about myself as being vanilla, as not really being that important, as not wanting to be a show off or be self-absorbed, kind of all of these values that we get fed as little girls and as women. And this gets very confusing for us because as little girls, we are held. And when we cry, it's cute or not cute, but it's, you know, we're acknowledged. And then as we grow into teenagers and as women, all of a sudden our emotions are too much or they're crazy or, what we want is maybe seen as, you know, greedy or, you know, don't be too much. All of these stories, right? We all have ways that we've been impacted by these stories. And so in this part, this is where I really want to start to talk to you about the difference between girl energy and woman energy. And so this is really important when we really start to look at how we see the world and whether or not we see ourselves as creators of our story or as victims of circumstance. And again, these are things that in my experience, they're very sneaky. You know, I would never describe myself outwardly as someone who identified as a victim. I don't feel that way. I feel like I kind of do what I want. And like I said, again, life is pretty good. But when I really started to look, there were places and ways that I was making outside circumstances responsible for what was possible for me. And so a perfect example is I have young children. I have young children and my life is so busy that I can't do anything with these children because they need me all the time. Our schedules are crazy. And this is really stepping into the victim mentality of, I can't do this because of something outside of me, instead of the ownership of really looking at, yes, but am I really even open to getting creative into possibility? And so when we talk about fantasy, we're really talking about this girl energy. Fantasy is like, to me, fantasy is like something outside of yourself. It's like something that you need to ask permission for, or that circumstances outside of you need to change in order to make that possible. It's like needing to ask permission from your parents to have something, so that there is something outside of you that determines whether or not you get to go after the thing that you want or declare the changes that you want to make. And these can be really big changes. They can also be really small changes. They can also be how you want to feel in your body, how you want to take care of yourself in your day-to-day life. Again, so this is going to look different depending on where you're at in your journey and in your season of life. And so fantasy is kind of like, wouldn't it be nice? Or like, maybe that works for her, but that would never work for me, kind of thing. Or, yeah, but, she has more privilege, or she has a wealthy husband or a wealthy family. And when we're really starting to look at fantasy, it's where we're putting ourselves in the passive role, in the victim role. And what shifts from fantasy, what shifts us from that girl energy into the woman, is when we really start to pull those fantasies down and bring them into our body and be the owners of these desires. And so desire is really where the woman comes in. And I just want you to take a moment to come into presence with your body wherever you are. And if you want, you can place one or two hands just below your belly button on your womb space and really feel into this space of creation. Your womb space, whether you have children, whether you can't get pregnant, it doesn't matter. Energetically, this is a creative space. This is where our sacral fire lives. This is where we as women really get to connect into and tap into our power. So when we shift ourselves from fantasy girl energy, we shift this into desire. And only from this place of desire, this place of deep ownership, can we really start to know the next steps, take ownership for what is truly meant to be ours. And so this can look like rewriting stories about how you see yourself. This bumps up against issues of worthiness. This can also really rub up against issues of like morality and values. of being virtuous or being humble or not wanting to make anyone feel uncomfortable with how big these desires may be. But when we start to shift into woman energy, we really start to shift into this eminence of knowing that we can really do whatever it is that we want to do. And whatever is really calling or speaking to you deep down is meant for you. Whether, and no matter how crazy it sounds, that anything that's coming through you as something that excites you or something that inspires you or moves you is really gets to be meant for you. And so sometimes I think it's really easy to look at your desires as being frivolous or selfish or not really necessary. And so from this place, we really want to connect into, well, what's the feeling? Not so much what's the thing, is it a new car? Is it a different lifestyle? Is it a new house? Is it, new experiences? Is it a love relationship? Is it a different relationship with your body? There's so many places that we can feel that we really want to connect into something bigger and something more. And what I really want to invite you to look at as you start to connect into bringing those fantasies from your ether into your woman is, well, what are the feelings? What would bringing that fantasy, bringing that desire into fruition, what would I feel? Because a lot of times this information is really going to connect us into why we want it in the first place. And it's going to give us that ability to see it as something that, again, is for us. So this is the process of becoming the creator. And so what I have really experienced in the last year is a lot of really big highs and lows around trust in myself, trust in the universe, trust in the process of being a woman. And what would happen is there would be this like conviction of like, yes, I'm so here for it. This is my desire. I know that like I'm here. Like, yes, I feel it. I know what I'm going for, and it's this or something better. I'm there. And then something would happen, or things wouldn't happen as quickly as I wanted, or maybe I would experience a setback, or I would just drop, and it would be this really wavy energy of, yes, totally, it's for me. And then no, like a lot of questioning, a lot of self-doubt. And this is what this was going on a lot of this year, a lot of high, a lot of low, a lot of high, a lot of low. And it wasn't necessarily so much like emotional highs and lows. It was more highs and lows of self-trust, of, yes, I feel this, I get it, it's for me, I have conviction, I'm owning it, to falling back into that little girl energy of, I need to ask for permission. Things outside of me need to change. Circumstances need to be different in order for me to move forward, in order for me to have evidence that yes, I can have this, or yes, I know what to do next. And there's a story that probably many of you are familiar with of the little matchstick girl. And the little matchstick girl she is really, really poor, and she has figured out that she can buy matches one place and for a penny and sell them on the street for 2 pennies. And so what happens is it becomes winter, and it's really, really cold out, and she's sitting out in the cold, and it's the holiday season, and she's trying to sell the matches and no one's buying the matches. And so she just sits down and she looks and she says, well, I have these matches, so why don't I just use them? But the problem is that she doesn't have any kindling. So every time she lights a match, she gets a moment where she feels the warmth, where there's light, and she enters this hallucination of the desires and dreams that she has, but ever so quickly, the match, it burns out. And so what does she have to do? She has to light another match. And so this is this energy of moving up and moving down. This is the girl energy, where we are at the mercy of our circumstance. We're lighting the match. We're all in. We believe in ourselves. We're trying something new. We're at the beginning of the phase, and then the match burns out and we start all over again. So this piece, I really want to talk about with what are the reasons for this? Why do so many women start and stop? We get on a kick, we're going to do the new thing, it's going to go great, and then something throws us off. And what I found in my circumstance is it's usually a combination of 3 different things. The first thing is really related back to the idea of the conditioning of the patriarchy. And likely the reason that we're procrastinating, or we're not sticking to things, or we're not able to stay plugged in and engaged and really get our kindling, our fire going, is because we're trying to do things that we don't even really want to do. We're doing things out of should. We're doing things that we think are going to make us happy. We're doing things that we saw make somebody else happy, or somebody else had success with, or we're even fed by society that, once you get the job, get the mortgage, the marriage, the children, that's going to make you happy, because that's what makes all the other women happy. And in truth, so many of us are really trying to do things that aren't even right for us. And so maybe it's not that we're procrastinators or we can't stick with anything. Maybe it's just that we're trying to do things that we don't even want to do in the first place. So that's one reason that we experience these highs and lows. Another reason is there is a lot of fear of disappointment. There is a deep fear of, if I get my hopes up and I really go for it and it doesn't work, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I'm going to be a failure. It's going to mean something about me. It's going to, show me that, that you dream too big, you can't handle it, you can't have it. And so another reason that we go high and low is this fear of disappointment. And then the third reason is the fear of, what if it actually happens? What if I'm actually able to make the changes in my lifestyle and stick to it and become the version of myself that deep down I really desire to be the woman who gets to be, do, and have the things that I really want? There's a big fear there, because that requires a change in your self-identity. So will my relationships be able to handle this change? Will my partner be able to accept me if I start to expand and grow in ways that maybe he or she is not ready for? And so this third piece is the, what if it actually could work? What would that mean? What would I need to, what would shift in my life? Would people disapprove of me? Would I get judgment? Would I fit in? Would I even still fit in with the people and the places that I'm really comfortable being in? And so what I found in my personal process is it's usually a combination of the three things of, are we even doing the things that we want? The fear of disappointment of, if I go all in and it doesn't work. And then third, the fear of, what if it does work? What does that actually mean? So when we really start to sink into desire, we get really confronted with these three questions. So with that, I want to talk a little bit more about the human design piece, because human design is a system that I use very, very readily in my life, and I use it with my clients. And I want to talk to you a little bit about energetics and what is energetics and why should you care and why do you really want to start taking into consideration your unique energetic blueprint when you're looking at what's next for you. So human design is a system of, it's a hybrid system that combines multiple spiritual and modern sciences. If you are interested in learning more specifically about human design, I am coming out with a free guide, a free PDF file that will give you information on your unique human design. I also do readings if you wanted to dive even deeper. But this piece of human design is really a part of the inspired action piece. So we pull down from fantasy, we bring in desire, we start to own the creator role in our lives. We start to see that we have this woman creative life force energy within us that lives within us, and that when we know how to apply our energy with clarity and focus, that we really can move mountains. And so there's so much wisdom that lives in your human design. And we will be talking, when we talk about human design, I'm going to kind of just touch on the three main pillars for your consideration. So the first part is your energy type. And your energy type really has to do with, where do you source energy? So 70% of the population, we source our energy internally. We are generators and manifesting generators. I am a manifesting generator myself. And so we source our energy from intrinsically. We create energy by doing what we love. When we get into a project, when we get connected to something that excites us, our energy bubbles up and we're able to generate and do more of that thing. With that, we create balance because we are able to know when we're satisfied and when enough is enough. Our non-energy types are sourcing their energy from the outside. So if you are a manifester, a projector, or a reflector, you are a non-energy type. And so these people source their energy from outside. And so this is the other 30% of the population. So when you start to tap into your human design, you start to see, where does my energy come from? And what is the best way to nurture my energy source? How much rest do I need? How do I know when enough is enough? How do I know when to plug in and unplug? Because our culture teaches us to go all the time, right? We are rewarded for overdoing, for overgiving, particularly as women. And so when we really start to tap into our energy, we can say, these are the things that I need in order to have a healthy balance so that I have the energy to give and to be and to call in the ways that I'm really meant to. So we really know, again, how to strategically start to take inspired action. The next piece of your chart is your authority, and your authority is your unique intuition. So we all have body wisdom. We all have intuition, little nudges, gut feelings, sensations in our body that guide us and tell us if we're on the right path or not, and when we need to course correct. So many of us have been conditioned to really shut down our intuition. And we've been taught to use our minds, that the mind is superior to the body, that in order to, make good choices, we have to think things through. And while we definitely want to use the mind is not ultimately your best guide, your best decision maker. And particularly as women, when we start to reconnect into our desire, reconnect into our feeling body, we start to really reawaken our intuitive wisdom. We start to allow these messages that maybe you used to feel a lot of intuitive wisdom as a child, or maybe you would get nudges or have an experience where you just get feelings about things and you started to shut it down. And a lot of this is, again, going back to the patriarchy, which values the masculine energy, the logic and the structure over the feeling and the flow. So in our human design, we get to talk about, how does your intuition specifically speak to you? Because what's really important to know is that everybody's intuition has a little bit of a different nuance. And so we really get to dive into, how does that feel for you? What sensations come up? And you can start to really play with leading your life through a more intuitive nature. And this is really exciting because it really pushes us off the edge from making sure that everything is planned and controlled, and that we know we've really weighed out the pros and cons, into kind of inviting that magic of possibility back in. Because when we follow our intuition, we don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to go. And even when we follow our minds, we don't know exactly how it's going to go. But we get this false sense of like, well, I have the evidence of this. And so if I do this, then this is the most likely outcome. Versus when we follow our intuition, we start to really allow our path to move more organically through our lives. And we are really opening ourselves to more surprise, more possibility in the outcomes that are available to us. The last piece of your chart that is really important to know is your profile. So your profile is a series of 2 numbers. And these profile lines give you it's almost like we could say it's like personality, but it's really more about how you're meant to really leverage your gifts. So once you know how to use your energy, once you start to tap into how you make your decisions, you start to really see how you're meant to bring your gifts into the world. And so there's lines 1 through 6. So I'm not going to go into detail about those, but again, if you want to download the free guide, that will be available after this class. And I also, again, have the reading option. So the reason that human design is so powerful is because it gives us this blueprint, this kind of unconditioned view of ourselves on a soul level. So we can really see, and I've actually never, and I've read over 100 charts now, had someone be like, yeah, no, that doesn't resonate. That's not me. I don't resonate with that at all. In fact, it's usually quite the opposite. It's usually like, whoa, yes. And more importantly, and this is my personal experience, it was like, actually, so I'm a manifesting generator, and one of my biggest insecurities was that I'm too all over the place. I'm always changing my mind and doing different things. And I'm not really committed. I'm not committed enough to one thing. And I got into this place in my life where it was like, that was like maybe cute in my 20s of like, oh, you're all over the place and you have all these different interests and you're so multi-passionate. But then it was like, so like, what are you actually doing? What are you actually focusing on? And so when I got to connect into my human design, I really got to see that my multifacetedness and my multi-passionate nature was actually a part of what makes me my best version of myself. It's really what is one of the most magnetic things about me. And so instead of seeing this as a problem, I was able to start to really own it in a way that helps me to helps me to bring more of what I want into fruition, instead of always being at war with myself, instead of always feeling like, okay, but I'm just going to tone this little piece down. And so all of the energy types have kind of their shadow side. And I see a lot of similarities between the different energy types of things that we feel insecure about or not enough about, or that we need to overcompensate for. And we're really able to shift those into superpowers and start to really own ourselves in even bigger and more fulfilling ways. So just to really recap where we've been, we started with the idea of fantasy and this idea that everything is reliant on circumstances outside, moving into starting to really connect into that woman energy, that creator, to feel these desires, these things that you want to experience more of in your life, these feelings. You want to feel something in your relationships, in your experiences, in your travel, because the thing is, a lot of times what we're feeling and what's actually happening on the outside can be at a huge discord depending on where we are in our ownership of our experience. And then so from there, it's really getting clear on what's the inspired action to take, meaning what do we need to do next that is guided from within, that's going to feel exciting, that's maybe going to feel a little bit scary, but that really feels like no matter how hard or scary it is, it's still in alignment with the bigger vision. We don't need to freeze and figure it out and feel like we need to control every little part. That when we can really start to tap into our essence and our truth and sinking into trust, into a higher order, into really knowing that we are so fully supported when we are being fully ourselves, that we can start to really lean into the discomfort that comes with growth. So in my containers with my clients, we work on all of these pieces. We work on really calling in, like, what are the true desires? Because a lot of things come up again around values, around worthiness, around cultural conditioning. And so many of us are chasing the wrong things, or avoiding things that we really want because we feel like they're bad or wrong or indulgent or selfish, and then really looking at, okay, well, what's the most natural road to get there? How are you designed to move through the world and to call in the things that you want? And it's from this place of deep self-knowledge and deep trust, which again can come in big waves, that you're really able to start to connect into the next steps and into those feelings and that satisfaction of experiences. So for me, I just want to say that this journey has not been walked alone. It's been supported by many amazing women, both, coaches that I've worked with and friends that I have shared this journey with who are on similar paths. And so you absolutely can start to do this work on your own. If you're feeling really called, you can pick up books, you can read things, you can study things. But the thing is that as women, we are meant to exist in community. We are meant to exist in sisterhood, in support, in circles. where we get to share our experiences. We get to be witnessed by other women who believe in us, by other women who want the highest good for us, who are there cheering us on to get closer to the things that we want. And so in my work, I am really interested in bringing in this circle, bringing in this support, because for me, the support has been everything. And when you start to make big moves, you start to face big fears, and having someone there to walk with you and extend a hand when you're feeling a little unsure on your footing makes all the difference of, are you able to reach that next level, expand just a little bit more? So if you are feeling called or connected and want to connect with me more, I am offering complimentary connection calls after this masterclass. If you would like to receive one, you can reach out to me directly. I'll also be sending a follow-up email. And from there, really talking about what's next for you. Do you know your design? Have you, what of this resonates for you in terms of where you feel that you are now and where you feel that possibility of where you want to be? And if you can't see it, if it's hard to even imagine because you feel like you should be happy because you have it pretty good, that's something that we can explore too, because I think it's really easy to downplay our need and desire for growth because of those reasons, those three reasons that I really talked about. So thank you so much. If anyone has any questions or wants to come on, I would love to connect with you. Thank you. Nicole says, I am not vanilla. Oh, thanks, Nicole. See, and that's another thing. We see ourselves in ways and other people will be like, that's not true. I never thought that about you. I think you're amazing. And so again, this is where having other women in your corner can be so valuable, because we get distorted visions of ourselves as well. So I'll just hang out for another minute. And if you are satisfied and good to go, thank you again for your time and for tuning in. All right.
I'm making little meatballs, so I can't text.
Sounds delicious.
Yes, I'm making, am I the only one left?
I don't know. There's a few. Yeah, I think it's just you. Yep.
I mean, I'm not saying anything private. Thank you. I loved it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for being here.
Yeah. I would love to do, whoa, you're going sideways on me.
Yeah.
To do more, to do whatever